Live from the KFOX 14 studios in El Paso and Las Cruces, this is KFOX 14 News at 5.
It was scary because, we didn't know what was going on. We went outside and there were agents, there were people everywhere, and it was, the kids were like, well, what's going on?
Families leave in fear as U.S. Homeland Security agents search the Dame la Mano shelter.
At the same time, El Paso City inspectors marked the building for code violations. Good evening, I'm John Purvis.
I'm Erica Castillo. First on Fox this evening, Dame la Mano, a pregnancy crisis shelter in South El Paso, is the target of an investigation. But there are still many questions tonight over what violations. KFOX 14 News at 5's Candlelight Flores begins our team coverage.
KFOX 14 has been reporting on issues with Dame la Mano dating back 6 years. Today, the city not only inspected the building, but Homeland Security also showed up with 2 search warrants in pursuit of evidence that could lead to federal charges.
This is part of an ongoing criminal investigation.
Special agents woke up the mothers and children staying at the shelter just before 6 Tuesday morning. 30 people, mothers and children staying at Dame la Mano, were taken to the Salvation Army, and special arrangements had to be made for kids to get to class. Leticia Zamaripa says the agency has been working with the city on this investigation for more than a year, but neither the city or Homeland Security will go on record to say why.
There have been no arrests. Nobody is in custody at this time. The only thing that is happening this morning is the execution of 2 search warrants, one here at the shelter and another in a West Side El Paso home.
We were told the home belongs to the owner of Dame la Mano, Rosa Arellano. I tried speaking to her there, but no one would open the door. The city put this orange danger sticker back on the shelter.
They told us to take it off.
Let the city come in.
Arellano and her family arrived, telling us the city made a mistake, and Dame la Mano wasn't shut down.
They're all false allegations. Up to now, there isn't one paper that says we're closed down. We went to the city and they said we're open. Take everything off.
Just about 90 minutes ago, I learned that the families that were taken to the Salvation Army never had to go. Leticia Zamaripa from the Homeland Security says they had the option to stay, but none of them asked to. Meanwhile, the city did find various maintenance violations and gave the owners 30 days notice to make repairs. Reporting in the newsroom, Candlelight Flores, KFOX 14, News at 5.
A mother who went to the Salvation Army from Dame la Mano asked to speak with us. She also asked us not to show her face. She describes for KFOX 14 the issues she says she faces at the shelter.
But there wasn't any hot water. A lot of the food was because on the weekends they didn't make us breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They was pretty much everything, every man for himself.
Dame la Mano not only denies those allegations, they invited us into the shelter. Tonight on KFOX 14 News at 9, what our camera captured inside. And Dame la Mano administrators held a press conference that just wrapped up. KFOX 14 News at 5's Genevieve Curtis is live in South El Paso. Jen, it sounds like they claim it's all a big mistake.
A big mistake, and the shelter has nothing to hide. As I speak to you now, workers have the shelter open, and those who run Dame la Mano says this all has to do with allegations of human trafficking and fraud. Now, I spoke to the co-director of Dame la Mano, David Arellano. He says ICE agents raided the shelter and his home, taking his computer and cell phone. Arellano says for years the city, specifically Representative Courtney Nyland and City Manager Joyce Wilson, have been out to get them. But when asked, Arellano didn't have an explanation for why the city leaders would single out their organization or why controversy has surrounded the nonprofit dating back to 2006.
We're going to have issues. Every single person's going to have issues, especially, I mean, they have issues being homeless, financially or different ways. But, you go and talk to, any other shelter, and I guarantee you 100% you're going to have issues at that place.
Dame la Mano's lawyer calling the code violations minimal, saying they will be fixed in the 30 days required by the city. Meanwhile, the shelter says they would like to bring back all of the mothers and children that are at the Salvation Army right now. Reporting live in South El Paso, Genevieve Curtis, KFOX 14, News at 9. 5.
And you just heard Genevieve reference El Paso City Representative Courtney Nyland. Nyland does have a history of visiting Dame la Mano Center to ask families to leave because the building allegedly doesn't meet city codes. So we contacted Nyland's office in response to today's events. We're told she has no comment at the moment.
KFOX 14 was first to tell you about problems with Dame La Mano more than 6 years ago, and we've done repeated stories on allegations ranging from violating food stamp rules to questionable fundraising practices and code violations at its shelters. Dame La Mano first came to KFOX 14's attention in July of 2006 when we learned the state of Texas was investigating claims the shelter for homeless mothers was violating state rules by making the women share their food stamps with other shelter clients. Allegations Rosa Arellano denied then.
We had to have a sprinkler alarm system.
In the summer of 2009, we talked with Dame La Mano's co-director, David Arellano, after learning the El Paso Fire Department was investigating another shelter run by the family.
And unfortunately, they did have several fire safety violations, fire code violations, and of course our concern is public safety, especially when you have a building that's sheltering women and children.
Then in June of 2010, KFOX 14 told you how El Paso's Homeless Coalition was considering cutting ties with Dame La Mano amid allegations the shelter's clients were panhandling for donations at busy intersections like Airway in Montana.
It's very hot out here, but I have a need, and that's why I'm here.
Rosa Arellano told us then they were raising money to replace their overcrowded shelter. In the end, the Homeless Coalition took no action.
We haven't gotten any other letters or anything like that.
Then in March of last year, KFOX 14 reported the city of El Paso was trying to shut down David Arellano's family crisis shelter because of repeated code violations. But Dame La Mano's co-director denied there were any problems.
And no legal troubles with the city, right?
No legal troubles.
Despite the repeated investigations and allegations, Dame La Mano remained in operation through it all.
Our continuing coverage of Dame La Mano is on KFOXTV.com. There you can watch the entire video of today's news conference and our web stories dating back to 2006, which include videos of those stories. You can count on KFOX 14 to stay on this story in the weeks to come.
It will be father versus son in the federal public corruption trial of former Socorro mayor and Socorro school board trustee Willie Gondara Sr. A jury selection was expected to start this morning, but when potential jurors arrived, the judge sent them home. Instead, Willie Gondara Sr. learned he will have to get a new defense attorney. Judge Frank Montalvo disqualified Joe Spencer because he also represents Gondara's son, who recently pleaded guilty to federal drug trafficking charges. Prosecutors say they expect to call Willie Gondara Jr. to testify against his father. It's a surprising turn of events, and in less than 25 minutes, KFOX 14 News at 5's Martina Valverde explains why prosecutors are calling the son to the stand.
Happening right now, a traffic alert for drivers heading out the door. A rollover on I-10 heading westbound near Hawkins has traffic on both sides of the interstate at a pretty slow crawl for this evening's commute. If you can, you should try to avoid that area and find another way home tonight. 2 people are recovering after an overnight accident. El Paso police say the 2 people involved in the crash may have been involved in a crime just before the accident. It's our update to overnight news. Police say they spotted the car after a report of a beer run at a 7-Eleven in northeast El Paso. They say the driver was speeding before losing control, causing the car to roll several times. A woman is severely injured in a rollover crash. This happened yesterday near Young John Road and North Loop. El Paso County Sheriff's deputies saying the driver tried to pass another car and then for some reason veered back into her lane, losing control. The car hit a fence, then rolled several times, tossing her out. Deputies say she was taken to the hospital with severe injuries.
Drivers deal with a backup during their commute this morning after a crash shuts down part of Geronimo for a few hours. Crews had to clean up a fuel spill near Bassett Place Mall. The road is clear this evening. New rules are coming for the next horse racing season at Ruidoso Downs after scrutiny of New Mexico's lax oversight of drug tracks and the drugs given to horses. The owner of the Ruidoso Downs track decides to crack down. He says if a horse tests positive for illegal drugs, its trainer will have his or her stall revoked. They would also be banned from the grounds, and their ability to enter horse races would be suspended. Ruidoso Downs plans to work with other tracks in Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana to implement similar guidelines.
From our exclusive Las Cruces Bureau, the fire department buys 2 new state-of-the-art fire engines. The rigs went into service last month, but they were displayed by the department outside City Hall today. One new truck is for Fire Station 3 on North Valley Drive, and the other is for Fire Station 4 on East Missouri Drive.
Our older ones had over 100,000 miles on them, and so these new ones are much more reliable. They're a lot smoother ride, they're a lot safer. They have actual airbag system in it for our safety.
The fire department will use the replaced engines when the main units are being serviced. Each new engine cost about $470,000. Move over Crown Vics. There are some new police cars in town. Local law enforcement agencies were able to test drive the latest Ford model police interceptors. The Casa Ford dealership brought in 2 units for officers and deputies to test drive.
Today we're on a ride and drive. We're letting the law enforcement agencies in the city, county, have an opportunity to drive these cars. They had not had an opportunity to see them before.
New Mexico State police officers rolled out their new fleet of interceptors last month. This batch, if ordered, would be used by the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, constables, and SISD police.
We saw the sun today, and we also saw some clouds. And Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz says there's a slight chance you may see some sprinkles tonight.
That's true. We actually have seen some rain out there this afternoon. And as we take a look at the very latest on our Doppler radar, you can see we are dealing with some hit-or-miss showers here and there. But it looks like for us, we're dealing with some heat still. Temperatures on our weather nets, well, they've been warm today. 94 right now at Dr. Martin Plastic Surgery with partly cloudy skies. So we've seen a little more cloud cover across the area, but those temperatures have been above average again in the mid to upper 90s. We are going to see an increase in moisture over the next several days. What that means for us is still ahead.
Man versus moose, and the encounter is caught on camera.
Mr. Gandara certainly has the right to have his own lawyer.
But it won't be the defense attorney you saw right there, Joe Spencer, taking off the public corruption case. I'll tell you why coming up.
You can still bring Fido and Fluffy onto your flight. The reason airlines must now wait to put new, tougher PEP rules into effect.
We sat down with a family that was part of a special roundtable meeting with President Barack Obama during his visit. The president's words that they say help, but don't heal their wounds. That's next on KFOX 14 News at 5. It's coverage you can count on.